Hello and welcome to Systems of Inequalities. For our first example, we're going to talk about graphing an inequality. So this, we can start off as if we were graphing an equation where the only difference is we don't have this inequality symbol. Okay, so if it's written in slope-intercept form the way it is, we would start the same way we were graphing a line at our y-intercept right here at -4. So I put a point at -4 because of my y-intercept. Then, just like graphing, we'll look at slope. Slope is a number next to the x when it's in slope-intercept form, and we rise 3, run 1. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3 over 1. Up 1, 2, 3 over 1. And just repeat. Okay, so normally what we do if we're graphing this, we would just connect those points and be done. But because we have this less than or equal to sign, we have to remember a few rules. If we are graphing something with an equal to sign underneath it, like a less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, we need to connect the points that we drew with a solid line. Okay, so here's our solid line. Now the second part is there are lots of things that are actually less than this line. So if it is written in y equals mx plus b, meaning we have y by itself and we have an inequality symbol, we can just look at the less than as a shading. Well, what we're going to do is we have to shade all the points that are less than this. So less than means we're going to shade below, and we just kind of shade in and darken in the area below. And what this means is all these points that are in here are a solution to this inequality. If you see something called a test point, the way we check a test point, generally you pick the easiest one, and I see in the middle, 0, 0 is not below this line, like where the shading is. So if I plug in 0, 0 to this point, it should not work. Let's see. Okay, 3 times 0 is 0, minus 4 is -4. So, is 0 less than or equal to -4? The answer to that is no. So that's why this 0, 0 point is not in the shading. If you would have tried any of these points out here, because they were below the line, less than what we said, would make this a true statement. And that's how we graph an inequality. So that was just one example, but the rules that we really need to remember are if you see this symbol here, the greater than, these all include if your equation is written in y equals mx plus b format, meaning of course not equal to, but one of these symbols, then if we have a greater than, y is greater than mx plus b, we shade above the dotted line. And it's dotted because it doesn't have the equal to sign like we saw in the last example. If this is a less than, we shade below the dotted line. Again, dotted, notice how both of these are dotted and neither of them have a line underneath. The equal to sign here for the greater than, again, shade above, equal to, solid line. Less than, shade below, equal to, solid line. So what I want you to do right now, hit pause, take a notice of these, just kind of look at them. If you're taking notes, which you should be, then what I'd like you to do is kind of write these down. These are like just things you need to remember in order to graph. So, but just notice the differences here. What makes a solid line? What makes a dotted line? In the symbols. When do you shade below? When do you shade above? Take notice of this. Hit pause if you need to. Alright, now this is your turn. I would like you to graph the inequality y is greater than 2x plus 3. Now hit pause, try to graph it in your notes, keeping in mind that you would graph it as if almost as if it were y equals 2x plus 3, except you have to remember what happens with the symbols. And if you forgot, You can always go back, look in your notes of the slide before. Alright, so I'm going to hit pause. You need to hit pause and do the graph. Because I'm not going to show you the steps. Just hit pause and do it. Do it. So, is this what you got? This is how you can check to see your graph. There's your y-intercept, 3. Here's your slope, 2. Up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Okay. You have these points. Then you connect them with this dashed or dotted line. As you can see, it's not a solid line because it does not have this equal to sign underneath. Next, we have, since it's in y equals mx plus b, we have a greater than sign. We are going to shade above. If you would have tried a test point, 0, 0, plugged it into this inequality, it would not work because all the shading is above. Okay, if your graph did not match this one, maybe you need to go back, rewatch some of the other slides, look in the book, try to figure out why your graph didn't match, see how yours is different. Alright, time for a brain bake. Take a look at this little puppy. It was jumping, but it fell asleep, and it got stuck. Poor little puppy. But again, go back and look at your notes. Try to figure out what we did to graph those two inequalities. Remember all the rules. Okay, so once you've mastered graphing an inequality, there's also, and the only reason this is in this chapter is we're talking about now a system of inequalities. A system of inequalities is basically the same thing as what we were just graphing, except now we have two inequalities. So I'm going to graph this. Start with the first equation, y is less than or equal to 2x plus 1. We start with our y-intercept of 1, put a point. Then of course rise 2 over 1, rise 2 over 1. Okay, because this has the equal to sign, I'm going to connect those points with a solid line. Not the best line, but I'm drawing with my finger on an iPad, so give me a break. Okay, so now we have a less than, so we're going to shade below. And I figured out how to make the pen tip a little wider so we can make our shading look better. So we're going to shade below. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, now the next thing we have to do is graph y is greater than negative 3x minus 2. So I'm going to start with my y-intercept of negative 2, which we kind of shaded over, but we can still see it. We'll need to change the color so we make sure you can see. There we go. It's red at negative 2, the y-intercept. Now the slope is negative 3, means we're going to go down 1, 2, 3 over 1. It's really hard to see, but when you do your shading, you just use the side of the pencil. It won't be that dark. I'm going to go backwards, make sure we make these lines connect, as if we were just graphing, well, you get the point. It looks horrible, but as if we were just graphing the system of equations, you need to make sure the lines connect if there's only one solution. Now, we need to do our shading. This is a greater than, so you can tell I made a mistake. I'll go back and fix that. This is supposed to be a dashed line, so what you can do is just kind of erase the solidness. There you go. It's very crooked. And now we need to add our shading. It's y is greater than, so we're going to shade all the points above, and again, this red line, all the points above the red line would be here. And what we have basically looks like a mesh, but if you were to identify where the solutions to this inequality are, the only points that would match both of these inequalities, if you did test points, would be in the area that is shaded by not only the red, but also the blue. And if you see this line has a solid line, so it would be included along that solid line, but not along the dotted line exactly, because, again, dotted doesn't include the equal to sign. Okay, so all this area here would be the solution to both of those inequalities. And that's how you graph a system of inequalities. Okay, keeping in mind to remember graphing an inequality or a system of inequalities, all these rules still apply. So, that's our notes for today. Look at these, and when we go over the notes in class, we should be a little bit more comfortable, or at least have better questions to ask for. And just remember that because we did an episode about the cat jokes, now this is the dog jokes, and of course we have our tubby little dog that is being mocked by the stuffed animal. So, thanks for listening. Ask questions tomorrow. Check out Edmodo. Go on Algebra Nation. All kinds of things if you still don't understand. Have a good night or day or whenever you're watching this. Be good in class.